Good evening, everyone. So you may hear a dinging during this, and that's because I set up the meeting, so I am letting people in if they don't have a Wake County address. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We're so very excited to have kids back in the building starting on Monday. I realize I want to be really clear about the fact that 4th and 5th graders are not starting until November 16th. So we really are only talking about our K through 3 students, preschool, and our CCK students. So we are not talking about 4th and 5th at this point, but all of the same protocols and things will apply when 4th and 5th graders do join us on the 16th. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and the way I'm going to structure tonight is just to kind of go through some of the protocols that we're going to have in place for when students return and what it's going to look like. And as we're going, if you want to put a question in the chat, then at the end we will answer your questions as best we can. If we run out of time, we will go ahead and create a document so that you can have your questions answered at a later time. Without further ado, we're going to talk about when we welcome students back in the mornings. And each morning, it's going to look a little bit different than it has in the past. So instead of 8 spots in our carpool lot, we're going to have 6, just because we have far fewer children, especially now during our rotation period. So at each spot on the carpool, if you are driving your child, there will be an adult with a thermometer and a list of questions. And there are those very common questions that are being asked now of pretty much everyone that's entering places of business these days, and we are going to ask our kids those same questions. So I did send a video. Hopefully the kids have at least heard those questions. I know they're not the greatest in terms of being understandable. So if you want to just talk to your child about what that means, if you are with them in the carpool, an important point to make is that we will need to have you stay and your child will open the door. So it's not going to be like typical years where we would open the door for you. So that adult is going to be standing there to take the temperature, greet your child, of course, ask them the required questions. But you need to stay put and your child needs to stay physically in the car until the temperature is taken and the required questions are answered. Now, if we take your child's temperature and they have a temperature over 100.4, you will be asked to simply take your child home. We will not be able to admit them to school that day. If your child passes that screening, then you are free to go and we will escort that child inside. In the first couple of days, we know that for some of our kiddos, this is the very first time that they're on campus. So we're going to help them find their places. We'll have plenty of adults to help them find their classrooms. And even for some of our returning students, our classrooms are not necessarily in the same place. So we will definitely have lots of people on hand to help them find their spots in their classrooms. One important point to make is even with the younger children, we cannot have parents walking their children to their classrooms, even on the first day. I promise you that our staff is ready to greet them. They're happy and excited, and they will be happy to show your little one to their classroom. And so, you know, things will look a little bit different, but the spirit at GAG is the same. And I can say that we've all been super excited about the prospect of having kids back in the building again, because as I've said before, it's very boring and very quiet without kids. So we will be there to welcome your students and we will be there to make them feel at ease. If your child is riding the bus, you will be asked to fill out a one-time health attestation form. So that's a form that you can get online, and I think I've sent it in my communications, but I can also send it again. And that is just a form that you will fill out one time and we will keep on file at school. So we do need to get that from every bus rider. And so if you would please do that as soon as possible. Most, Most beneficially, it would be on the very first day. So please make sure that you are sending your child with that health attestation form. Now, when your child arrives on campus on a bus, we are going to have adults that are present to make sure they are socially distanced. We have stickers on the ground for that. And they will line up as they get off of the bus, and they will be escorted to one of 3 of our health check areas. We will have 3 adults. Each of those adults will again have a copy of the questions and a thermometer to check temperatures. And so it's going to work almost the same way, except obviously students who've ridden the bus will not have a parent with them. So we will take the temperature, ask the health questions, and then if a child for some reason has a high temperature or isn't able to answer the questions to show that they have not been exposed to COVID, then we will be taking your child to what we call the care center. So let's talk about the care center. The care center is not the same as the health room. The health room in the front office is now going to be used for things like skinned knees and physical injuries. It is no longer going to be used for sickness symptoms that could be symptoms of COVID or similar symptoms. And so a child who has a fever in the morning before they even go into school will be walked to trailer 7, cottage 7, which is where the care center is. And so we have an adult identified that will be walking the child to the care center. There's plenty of room in the care center. There's a bathroom in the care center, and it allows for your child to be supervised, but also still within that, or without that 6 feet. So still they will have a 6 feet of social distance within the care center, but they'll be able to keep an eye on students. From the care center, that supervisor will go ahead and give you a call to pick up your student. When you come to pick up your child, there is also new protocol around that. So we're not going to have you come in and use that Identikid computer anymore. You will ring the doorbell, as you have always done, and someone from the front office will come and meet you. You can explain, I'm here because my child is in the care center, and you will be shown to the care center to check your child out directly from there. If you need to check your child out for another reason, it's still the same. You'll come to the front door, ring the doorbell, but we will not have you come in the building. Again, we're minimizing the exposure to too many folks, and so we will have somebody come to you, and we will check your child out through a clipboard outside rather than have you come in and check out on the computer. If your child takes daily medication and they happen to be in the care center when that is required, everyone who is being trained for the care center, and we have a number of employees being trained for the care center, they will be trained in medication administration as well. So they will get the medication sent up from the office, someone will bring it up, and they will be able to administer your child's medication if that's necessary. And again, that's just that medication that they take as a matter of course at school, and that they've already filled out a 1702 for. So it's not like different kinds of medications that we would give in response to anything. It's simply the medication that your child takes regularly if they don't. Okay, this is going very quickly, but devices. I wanted to talk to you about student borrowed devices. I know there's been a lot of conversation about the place of devices in the in-person instruction. And I will say that although we are trying our best to minimize too much screen time in in-person instruction, there will be times where our children who are in person face-to-face still need to engage with a device. We have always been, or for the last 3 years, have been a BYOD school, and our teachers use Google Classroom and other tools for that. We also have the situation where 2 of the cohorts are on remote learning while 1 cohort is physically on campus. And so since we can't really clone our teachers, we really need to have some of that access for the students face-to-face to be done through the smartboard, engaging with their at-home peers. So we will make sure that we do that as sparingly as possible, but it will be necessary. And having given out, I think Wake County gave out tens of thousands of devices last year. We do not have any devices to give out at school. So if you borrowed a device from Wake County and or if you have your own device, please do bring it to school each day, because that will be very, very helpful. And we would rather not have students sharing devices. Obviously, we want to minimize that shared contact of things. So we're going to make sure that each child has their own device, or the devices are sanitized between each student. Lunch. So this is one of those things that when I read it, it's going to sound very extreme, but it's not. I promise you that once all of these protocols have a feeling of such a difference. It's when I was putting these out for communication, and as we were receiving them and talking over them, when you initially hear them, they sound so different than normal school that it is a little bit, it takes you aback at first. But I promise you, and I've told the teachers this, and they are 100% on board, that as soon as we have students in school, it's going to feel just like it always did in many, many ways. We have missed seeing those little faces, and we are going to have them back, and it's going to feel just like normal. But for lunch, students will have their lunches. If they decide to buy from the cafeteria, that will be noted on a form in the morning. The teacher will do a lunch count. And at the lunchtime, the TA in the classroom, the IA we call them, will go to the cafeteria and pick up the number of lunches that we need. There will not be a choice on the lunch calendar. So if your child's getting a school lunch, there will only be one choice. And I did send a link to the menu. Please do look at the menu and make sure that it's something that your child wants and can eat. And if they do, that lunch will be brought to the classroom. Again, students at this time are not paying for lunches. So there is not the requirement that students pay for lunch at this time. We're under a different lunch program at this point, and so we will not be requiring students to pay. But the lunches will be brought to the classroom. Again, the students in the classroom are spaced apart 6 feet. We are asking that students do all their preparations to eat with their masks still on. So peeling bananas, opening containers, things of that sort. We ask that they do all of that while keeping their masks on. Then they can take their masks off to eat. All the students will be facing the same direction, which is a DHHS guideline when you have your mask off and you're eating. They will still be socially distanced, but they're going to be eating without their masks on. And during eating time, the teacher will do something, either a read aloud or put something entertaining up for the kids to look at, because they are not going to be able to talk during eating time. When they are done eating, they put their masks back on and they're free to talk again. And again, this is just to minimize the amount of particles and things in the air, and just to keep everybody safe and do our best to abide by health guidelines. For dismissal, we also have a slightly altered process. So in the past, those of you who have been at our school know that we have had car riders go to the cafeteria, and they sit according to grade level, and then their numbers are called. Now, because we want to avoid having too many kids in one space, we're going to keep the students in the classrooms, even those carpoolers, and their numbers will be put into the computer. Miss Driggers outside will put them in the iPad. The numbers will then be put in the computer by Miss Corella, and they will be projected on the TV screens in each classroom. So students will know when their car is here, and they will then proceed to the cafeteria, where they are spaced out by 6 feet. There are dots on the floor to indicate that, and then they will be walked out to the car. And that is basically dismissal. We've only got, at this point for cohorts, 3 buses right now, so we don't anticipate there being too much busyness at the end of the day. So this should be a fairly smooth process, but we are absolutely going to be practicing this. We as a staff have practiced this many times today. We have troubleshooted any problems that seemed to come up while we did it. We have honed our protocols to make sure that everything makes sense and is easy, and it has at least the least amount of contact possible. So I do want you to know that we are doing everything we can to keep everybody safe, and that we're going to make sure that the students are also having a good time, because we're happy to see them. And as formal as all of this sounds and as hard to get used to as some of this is, I think we got used to online learning, and we will get used to this. And as soon as students have the protocols down and adults do, it's going to be like we didn't miss a beat. I'm sure of it. So I'm looking forward to it. So that is sort of our day in a nutshell. And I know that we have questions, and I would love to take the time to answer any of those questions. If you have a question on transportation, I think Ms. Wood has been looking at the chat. If you have a question on transportation, Mr. Lombardo is on, and if you have a question about anything instructionally, Ms. Wood, our instructional facilitator, is on. And if you have any questions that you just are outside of those realms, I am on to answer those as well.
Kristen, I'll start asking you a few. The YMCA before school, do you know what their check-in procedure is? I'm assuming it's just very similar to ours. I just don't know exactly what it is.
Right. I don't either. I am assuming that it is also the same as ours, and I would suggest contacting the Y directly about that. I know there's been some different conversation about when those programs are starting and exactly what they're doing. We are very sure of our protocols, but I would, if you know that your child is going to be attending the Y, I would definitely reach out directly to ask them about their protocols as well.
And Ms. Meadows, I'm not exactly sure if I'm answering this, but it says, will the health forms be the same situation for students arriving on daycare bus van from before school care? So I'm assuming you're asking, will the health forms will be similar to the bus ones?
So really, we've just got the bus. Now, Mr. Lombardo, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the bus riders are the only ones who are doing that health attestation form.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But I think we're still, Mr. Lombardo, are we still checking the kids as they come off the van?
Yes, absolutely.
In the morning, yeah. Okay.
All students. So that does not change.
And then Ms. Meadows also asked a good question. Can kids bring their own lunches? Which I answered, but in case people can't see the chat box, yes. The children don't have to eat the food from the cafeteria, but it is an option. And again, just like Ms. Walker said, it's free right now for children, breakfast and lunch. So just keep that in mind for now. And let's see the next question. Will morning carpool start earlier than 8:45 to accommodate for the extra time?
So we are not anticipating that. Now, again, what I have said to staff and what we have decided is that this is very much going to be a learning curve for us. And that's why I really appreciate the fact that we're coming back as we are in these cohorts, because there may be things that we need to tweak from time to time, and that could be one of them. I anticipate that even with, and we've kind of looked at how many bus riders, how many car riders we have, even with the number of car riders being greater than the number of bus riders, we still have very few students on campus at one time in the cohorts. So I don't anticipate it being a problem, but if it is, we will change course and adjust.
Very good. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that Mr. Lombardo had answered that question. Sorry, I scrolled down and saw that. What are class sizes going to be like? It varies from grade to grade. So it really depends on, that's a question for your teacher to ask. Again, we know them off the top of our heads, but it ranges because of the choices that parents have made, which is completely fine. But they are all right where they're all safe in the classrooms that they're
right. So that's the one point I wanted to make, is that particularly in the cohorts, and then when we plan for moving forward and having potentially all the students in K3 back on campus on the 16th, we have accounted for, we've been given by the county schematics with the number of students admissible in each classroom with 6 feet of social distancing. So we do have that information, and we have planned accordingly. So no one is in a situation where their class is too large for the capacity, even given the 6 feet social distancing.
And are we allowed to walk our students to school and walk to pick them up?
You can, you just wouldn't be able to enter the building. But yes, just like other years, and for those who have not been on our campus, you certainly can pick them up. We call those a red tag walker, and that just means that you would like someone to be there in person, and we'll check your ID, and then you can have your child dismissed. So we also have blue tag walkers. Typically they tend to be the older students, and they have permission from their parent to actually just leave campus and walk home without someone meeting them there. But those are our two options in terms of walkers.
And will the same teacher who is teaching the in-school cohort be teaching the cohorts that are learning remotely, or will that be a separate teacher? And Mr. Lombardo answered that. The same teacher will teach live and remote students. And just to kind of elaborate a little bit on that, every Plan B teacher has been assigned a full-time instructional assistant. So when the cohorts are in, the instructional assistant will be also assisting the teacher in making sure that both groups are getting what they need. So sometimes the IA may be working with the kids virtually while the teacher's working with the children in the classroom, and sometimes they'll switch. When the teacher is teaching, though, the kids in the school and the kids and virtually will be listening to her at the same time. And then good question from Allison's parents is, what about the after-school program at Green Hope?
So thank you for that question. Right now, all I can say is in these next 3 weeks for cohorts, we will not be doing the after-school program. We're kind of waiting for advisement from the county on after-school programs. But I can tell you that in the immediate 3 weeks, we will not be holding an after-school program.
And kids are allowed to bring their own lunches. That was another question. So.
And it is not too late to sign up for bus service, as far as I know.
Yep.
You already answered that. You did already answer that. I'm sorry.
No, I missed it, I think.
No, Steve answered it.
Okay. Good. Are there any other questions that maybe weren't in the chat or
weren't covered in the presentation?
Feel free to unmute yourself. And do kids have to bring sanitizing wipes to clean desks before the start of the school? That's a great question.
Thank you for that question. We are being provided by wipes by the district we have wipes that are every day just to be used by the teacher, but they are disinfecting wipes. Teachers have been trained on how long to keep that wet. So they have to leave it on there for at least 1 minute before drying. I've instructed them to just leave it on there and let it air dry, and that disinfects. And we also have tech wipes for any computers or devices that end up being shared. I don't anticipate that we will have many, if any, shared, but we do have wipes for that purpose as well. We also have Purell hand sanitizing stations throughout the building to be used by students and staff. And we ask that students do bring their own water bottle because we are not using water fountains.
The next question is a great question. It's about the supply list. Your teachers will give you instructions on what to bring for the classroom. What the teachers are doing is having the students set up like a pencil box or a pencil pouch that will contain all the materials that they need. Scissors, glue sticks, pencils. Every teacher's gonna be a little different what they request in that pencil pouch. And then that way it stays with the child, and we don't have shared materials. We don't have a shared pencil can. We don't have shared marker bin, anything like that. So the teachers will instruct you on what exactly they need. It does change. It is a little bit different than that supply list that they gave you over the summer or at the beginning of the year, in the sense that it may even be just a little bit less of what is all on that list. But the teachers will tell you that.
I am putting our emails in the chat as well. So if you have...
Sorry. The other thing Go ahead, Ms. Walker. I'll go after you. I'm
If
sorry.
you have transportation questions, Mr. Lombardo is probably your point person. If you have instructional questions, Ms. Wood is your point person. And anything else, I'm your point person. Or if you want to start with me, you're more than welcome to.
The other thing that the children will need to bring, as Ms. Walker said, is their devices, but they will also need to bring the materials that we passed out last week, the math materials, the reading materials. They'll need to bring that with them the week that they are in. And then starting for K3, when they come full time, it'll stay at the school, but they need to make sure they bring it the week they're in, bring it home for that asynchronous day, then come back, then it comes back the days that they're in school. If that, I'm just not sure if that made sense.
Just to clarify as well, on the asynchronous days, students in Plan B do not attend school. So they do not come on the asynchronous days. And I'm not sure if that's been clear enough in the communication that's come out. So I did want to make sure that you knew that. Part of that is it's a chance for teachers to be able to plan across these multiple settings that they're now teaching in. Students can sort of catch their breath and catch up on some of the work that they're doing. And it gives us a chance to plan as a grade level as well. So that is what those asynchronous days are, and students will not attend school. Even Plan B students will not attend school on those asynchronous days.
Another great question is, what are they allowed to do during recess? So for recess, they will have to have their masks on, but they will be allowed to run around and play. They won't be allowed to be on the equipment. And the teachers are also going to contact parents, or the teachers are putting together little packs of toys for each individual kid for recess. So for example, I know Miss McMahon has put together a little pack for each of her kids that contains like Play-Doh, sidewalk chalk, and the bubbles. That's the wand bubbles, not the ones that you blow in, so that they have some items to play with at recess.
Ms. Wood, I just want to do a time check and make sure. I know some of the teachers have sessions starting. Is that at 7 or 6:30?
7.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, recess is another time when students do need to keep their masks on and still do need to be socially distanced. So we're going to try and make that as fun as possible. And there are opportunities through the day with certain parameters, which teachers are trained on, that they can have students take mask breaks. Those mask breaks need to be less than 15 minutes. Students need to be at least 8 feet apart, and it needs to happen outside. So there are opportunities for mask breaks that will be facilitated by the teacher. It's not something that students will do on their own. So please do, to the best of your ability, prepare your children for wearing those masks and making sure that they are staying up above their nose and they have a well-fitting mask. We will also have masks at school. So if something happens to theirs or they just don't have one, we will make sure we provide one. Any new questions in the chat?
No, I think we answered all of them.
All right. Well, again, our emails are in the chat.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. We missed one. Allison's parents asked about getting a device from the county. Right, as of right now, the county does not have any devices to hand out.
They are working on it, but there are worldwide distribution issues, as you can imagine, that are slowing that access for all counties. And so that we're in that same situation. So of course, we will do our very, very best to make sure that all students have access, even if it means that we are sanitizing between each one. If they need to share a device, they won't be sitting within 6 feet of each other, but if one uses it and then the other uses it, it will be sanitized well in between. But our, again, our emails are in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. If you have any, apprehensions or even just confusion or questions, we are happy to answer it.
Ms. Walker, there's a really good question. What will happen if there's a positive COVID case?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. So we have guidelines as a school district of folks I need to report to. The child, of course, so we won't know on campus that day. When we find out, we report to Wake County. Wake County reports to the Department of Health, and then it's determined the sort of contact area of the child, and they will do their contact tracing, and we will do any disinfecting that's necessary where that child was. It does not mean an automatic shutdown of the whole school. So it is very much a process of containing that. If we have a child with symptoms and we don't know whether it's COVID or not, again, that child will be escorted to the care center. We have a clean space where we will move that entire class while we disinfect the room where that child is. So even with, symptoms, we will make sure we disinfect that classroom even before we know. And I know that the county has put out so much information, and they've done the same for principals, and people are working tirelessly, I promise you, to make this a safe and inviting, welcoming back to school. But I also know that it means that there's lots of information out there, and sometimes it's hard to cull through. So don't worry about sending me an email and saying, I think I saw this somewhere, but I just don't remember the answer. That's fine. Things are also changing all the time. So, feel free. You are more than welcome. And I really appreciate all of you. We are asking that third grade teachers, that's where my brain is right now. Third grade parents, if you would please stay on the meet when we end. We just have to speak to you pretty quickly about the beginning of year test that third graders take and sort of how that's going to be handled this year. So please do reach out to us anytime. We're so excited to welcome your kids back. We cannot wait for them to come back. And so thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Don't be afraid to email or call, and we will see some of you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I had one more question about PE classes. How are those going to be run? I know sometimes there's this distinction between like high exerting activity versus like low. Is it masks on full time no matter what?
It is masks on full time, and if they are, I don't anticipate that they're going to be doing anything that's quite that strenuous. But we will work with them to make sure that if there's an activity that's coming up that's going to be that strenuous for children, that we make sure that everyone is more than 6 feet socially distanced, and that we're probably outside and minding all of the health guidelines for that.
Thank you.
That's a great question about music class. The county has said that right now it's really not safe for kids to be singing in music class, which is so sad to say out loud, but we know it's necessary at this time. But they do have, the county has purchased a really, really good program that the students will use devices for, but our music teacher has spoken really highly of it and probably will be able to tell you more about that as she has your students in class, and kids will be able to tell you about it. But supposedly it's really, really neat, and it will take the place for right now of the kids singing or playing any wind instruments. Ms. Wood, did you want to talk about the BOG for third grade parents that are still on?
Sure, I can talk for a few minutes. Sorry,
That's okay.
it's a little bit dark in here. I forgot to turn the lights on. So third grade parents, we are having the beginning of the year test for third grade students that are physically in the building. It has to be done within the first 20 physical days that they're in the building. So we anticipate it being, well, actually, I'm not even going to say when we anticipate it being. Information will come out to you as soon as we get that scheduled. We haven't scheduled it yet, but day 6, will be November 16th. So we have plenty of time. We have until I think the beginning of December to schedule that. So again, I just wanted you to be aware that that is coming up. It's not anything your kids study for. It's really just kind of a marker for us to start the data accountability piece that we do at school. So I wanted to be able to answer any questions, but what we have right now, again, is we don't have the date scheduled. We do have that they're going to do it in school. We are very hopeful. We're still working out the process of this, but we're hopeful that we're going to do it on the computer for the kids, so that, because that's what they've been used to. They've been used to doing all the stuff on the computer, and that's how their EOGs and everything will be administered. So we want to kind of keep that consistent for them. And the tests are the reading and the math. It's a 90-minute test.
And it's based on third grade end of.
It might just be, is it reading and math?
Sorry, it's just reading.
That's why I was like, I think I said that wrong. It's just reading.
Yeah.
And it's a 90-minute test. If your child does have accommodations, we are going to, obviously honor those accommodations. So information will come out more as it gets closer to when the kids will be taking that test. Feel free to unmute if anybody has a question about that. Okay, no questions. Again, more information will come home and about the dates and the testing. So thank you for your time. We really do appreciate it. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything.